The US military has always been criticized for being stretched a little too thin throughout the world, with missions, resources, and assets literally everywhere, from Africa, the Middle East, South America, within the United States, also North Korea. That's right, North Korea. We do have an asset in North Korea known as Mr. Travis King right here, Private Travis King, and I'm calling him an asset because the United States refuses to call him a prisoner of war. They are just referring to him as a soldier, an asset. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how there really is no hope for this soldier to ever make it back, considering where North Korea is heading. They are now really starting to become a way bigger threat that we could ever imagine. They are now building their navy. They are showing off new submarines that they have. They are no longer this hermit nation of a bunch of starving people with a fat leader who are all crazy. That is the big stereotype. In reality, North Korea's military really is building. Their relationships with other major superpowers outside of North Korea is growing. They are using their resources for the good of their country. Now, what we're going to do is, because a lot of people forgot about this guy, Travis King, let's go ahead and remember exactly what North Korea said about Travis King, and then throughout this video, we'll also start to talk about how North Korea, they're starting to become friends with Mother Russia, and North Korea is starting to build and build and build their navy to where it's becoming a problem for everyone. But real quick, let's remember what North Korea said about Travis King, or at least what Travis King said about North Korea.
DNA now claiming Private Second-Class King, who's 23, wants to seek refuge there or in a third country. A statement saying he confessed to illegally entering to escape, quote, maltreatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army, adding he was disillusioned with the unequal American society.
Now, let's be honest, Travis King did not say that. North Korea, if you look into the history of what they've always said about the United States, is that the United States, they're just a bunch of racists. Don't ever listen to them. Let's discredit them. And this is the best thing that could happen for North Korea, is to get a black U.S. Army soldier in their hands and now prop them up as this guy of, look, he's coming into our country. We told you the U.S. military is racist. Now you can really believe us because, look, he's saying it. He came to our country. And that's why I thought it's important to put this in the video, because, again, a lot of people forgot about Travis King, but it goes to show what direction the North Koreans are moving in when it comes to the progression of their military and how they use whatever asset they can to control their own people to build up their military. Now, this next part of the story is actually very big, and it actually vindicates the military strength of North Korea. Russia is going to North Korea to talk to them about purchasing artillery rounds.
The last time North Korea's Kim Jong-un met Russian leader Vladimir Putin in 2019, he took his armored train to Vladivostok, the closest major Russian city to Pyongyang. At that time, Kim was seeking support in nuclear negotiations with former U.S. President Donald Trump. On Monday, the New York Times reported that he would travel to Russia this month to meet Putin again, under very different circumstances. The paper reported Kim will discuss the possibility of supplying Moscow with weapons to support its war in Ukraine, citing U.S. and allied sources, who also said Kim will travel from Pyongyang again by train, like his father Kim Jong-il, who famously shunned air travel, and they'd meet again in Vladivostok. The Times reported that this time Putin's likely to ask Kim to send Russia artillery shells and anti-tank missiles in exchange for Moscow's technology to improve Pyongyang's satellites and nuclear-powered submarines.
And that right there is massive. Again, North Korea is not this puny little military that we really shouldn't worry about. Yes, they don't have any combat experience, but if a military is able to slowly grow while a little kind of under the radar and just be able to develop their submarines and other sort of technology, they can become a legit force. Go ahead and do some research into how Egypt was able just to keep building and building and building, and now they're one of the biggest militaries and strongest militaries in Africa. Now, one thing to understand, again, is that countries throughout the world who are involved with the conflict of Russia, Ukraine, etc., everyone is dealing with an artillery round shortage. I mean, Germany, back in June, Germany only has 20,000 HE rounds. which was a really big deal because theoretically they did not meet NATO standards. So again, for Russia to go straight to North Korea, where we like to think of these people as a broke country who has nothing, I think it's very telling. Now, something else that's very telling is that you have South Korean intelligence sort of talking on what they really think is going on and how North Korea is also developing strategies within their naval powers. Here's a South Korean intelligence analyst sort of talking about how they believe that the North Koreans and the Russians are actually trying to work together through naval powers.
국정원에서는 쇼이구 국방장관이 북한에 방문해서 김정은을 면담할 당시에 아마 북중러 해상 연합훈련에 대한 공식 제의가 있는 것으로 지금 파악을 한다는 답변이 있었습니다.
And of course, unironically, now you have North Korea showing off their new submarine that apparently the Chinese actually gave them, and the North Koreans were able to work on it, modify it, and pretty much vamp it up into the 21st century to where this is a legit threat. Again, I'm showing you guys this video not only to show you that Travis King is probably never coming home, but the direction that North Korea is moving into and how really in the Pacific, North Korea is becoming the main threat to everyone.
North Korea unveiled its first operational tactical nuclear attack submarine, state media said on Friday. The boat, named Hero Kim Kanok, has been assigned to the fleet that patrols the waters between the Korean Peninsula and Japan, North Korean outlets reported. So what is the new vessel, and what does its launch mean for the reclusive country's navy? In a speech at the sub's launch ceremony, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said it would become one of the main, quote, underwater offensive means of the naval force. North Korea's...
Okay, so I hope you heard that right. Offensive means in the naval force, not defensive. What I've always found really interesting about North Korea, and I know a lot of us like to say, well, these are just veiled threats, they're not legit. They always are on the offensive, always thinking on an offensive mindset, not necessarily on a defensive mindset, unless it's just trying to contain citizens within their own country. But that's always something that North Korea has the tonality of, always wanting to be on the offensive.
Its navy has historically been dwarfed by its land forces and overshadowed by its rapidly advancing ballistic missile program. But over the past year, it has moved to boost its navy with new nuclear weapons, including an underwater drone and warships. Analysts say the new vessel appears to be a modified Soviet-era Romeo-class submarine, which North Korea acquired from China in the 1970s and began producing domestically. Shin Sun-ki is a research fellow at the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses and says it is expected to carry tactical ballistic and cruise missiles, but may face limitations.
Because it has excessively modified the existing Romeo-class submarine, there may be some limitations in immediately operating it compared to the existing one. However, there is a possibility that North Korea has strengthened the internal structure in some way to ensure operation. In that regard, while there may be limitations, it is likely that they will continue to develop it to a level where it can be operated at some point in the future.
And the thing is, there's absolutely nothing we can do about it without causing... I think if you did go after North Korea, this would be a World War III event where they just will full send everything they have. And so, again, North Korea can just go untouched if they want.
Such weapons won't add much value to land-based nuclear forces, added former US government weapons expert Van Diepen, who works with Washington-based 38 North. That's because the aging submarine at the core of the design is relatively slow and noisy, with a limited range. Combined, these factors mean it may not survive long in a war, and would be vulnerable to anti-submarine warfare, he said. South Korea's military said that the submarine didn't appear ready for normal operations, and that there were signs North Korea was attempting to exaggerate its capabilities. North Korea's navy has about 470 surface vessels and around 70 submarines. In August, Kim inspected a new Amnok-class corvette, a patrol ship that state media said was capable of firing nuclear-armed cruise missiles.
Now, look, without a doubt, you have to take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to South Korea. But nonetheless, this is going to be a major headache and a weird situation for the United States and other allies in the Pacific. Because consider... China, especially, is loving this, where China is just trying to push into the South China Sea, try to keep pushing, and eventually end up in Australia, is what many military analysts say is the final destination, to include the United States, where they've actually sent military assets to help defend the northern parts of Australia from a Pacific attack from the Chinese. But again, now all of a sudden, all eyes are up here in North Korea, where they're becoming friends with the Chinese, becoming friends with the Russians. They've been friends with them for a long time, but to actually utilize their technology and assets, and for North Korea to sell artillery rounds to Russia, that's a big deal. Countries throughout the world, the number one way that they become your friend is by selling you technology and armaments, or like military technology especially. But nonetheless, I am making this video to show you guys, look, there is a legit threat with North Korea in the Sea of Japan. I don't know how we're going to navigate all of this. I know the U.S. military is sort of downplaying and saying, well, this submarine's not good, it won't last in a war. But again, I think that's the old way of thinking with the U.S. military of, oh, well, it won't last for a war. It might only take a few shots to really cause a lot of mayhem and chaos. And, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see violence. I want to see peace. But again, what do you do with a country that can do whatever they want? One thing I will tell you that they're not going to do, definitely give the United States Travis King. And if I'm always researching and looking up things for Travis King, if anything comes out, it's very hard to find stuff because, look, North Korea is not giving up that asset, that U.S. military asset. But again, okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned something. North Korea is no joke. In fact, I think they're the biggest threat in the Pacific, not the Chinese, not anything going on around here. I think North Korea is the one wild card that we are literally constantly always watching.